from Brazil Muhdata School. Today I'm going to teach grade 11, Unit 1, Festivals. In this lesson, we are going to discuss some questions about festivals, answer some questions about the text, cherry blossom time in Japan, guess the correct meanings for multi-part verbs with go, and complete some sentences with multi-part verbs. Festivals. Now we have a question. What festivals do we celebrate in Syria? First of all, we celebrate Eid al-Adha. We celebrate Eid al-Fitr, the Mother's Day, and the Christmas. Now let's move to another question. But before we move, we have more than these festivals that we celebrate here in Syria, but I have mentioned some of them. Now, what happens during these festivals? Let's look at the following picture. In Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, people gather in the early morning for communal prayers. Let's move to another thing. Okay, now people go to amusement parks to have fun. Okay, and people prepare special food and sweets to celebrate the occasion. In some festivals, people decorate the streets with lights and sometimes with flags. Let's move to the third question. How can festivals benefit society? First of all, it's a time for unity between communities. Like, for example, in Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, people, it's time for unity between Muslims. Now, the second thing, it's a time of forgiveness, or a time of forgiveness where people forgive each other, and especially those who have done them wrong. It's a time to celebrate shared values, virtues, and faith. Okay. Now let's move to talk about festivals around the world. People all over the world celebrate the New Year's Day, which is on the 1st of January. Okay. Also, people celebrate the Mother's Day. Muslims celebrate Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Some nations celebrate the Halloween. Okay. Some nations celebrate the Halloween, where they wear special clothes to celebrate the occasion. In China, they celebrate the Dragon Boat Festival, where they race in boats with dragons' heads. In India, people celebrate the Color Festival, where they play with color powder. Now let's move to the Christmas. This is a Christian holiday to commemorate the birth of Jesus Christ. Now we are going to talk about cherry blossom time in Japan. This is a special celebration or a special festival in Japan. Look at this, we have some cherries. Do you like cherries? Okay, now what do we mean by blossom? Blossom means flowers on bushes or trees. Let's look at these two pictures. We have a question before we read or before we listen to the article. When do the Japanese celebrate the cherry blossom festival? Let's move to the text. Now, before we listen, let's listen to the text.
If you go to Japan in March or April, you're almost certain to see one of the cherry blossom festivals which take place all over the country every spring. Viewing the new blossom on cherry trees has been a favorite Japanese custom since the 7th century CE. When it first started, Japanese people used to look at the blossom on the cherry trees and write poems. These days the festival not only marks the beginning of spring, but also the start of the academic year and the financial year. On viewing days, people eat special food and drink outside. Some people take their own food, others buy food from street vendors. Parks in the Japanese capital Tokyo are favorite places for people to view the cherry blossom, but of course the parks can get very busy. The historical parts of the city of Kyoto are also very popular. For people who don't like noise and crowds of people, there are also quieter places, like the mountains, where they can view the blossom. In fact, everywhere in Japan there are cherry trees, parks, castles, gardens and even school playgrounds. The blossom of the cherry tree is Japan's national flower and there are more than 400 types of cherry trees in the country. But these cherry trees are different from those elsewhere in the world because they do not produce fruit.
Okay, have you found the answer? When do the Japanese celebrate the cherry blossom festival? They celebrate it in March or April. Now we have some difficult words. We have to match the words with their meanings. The first one, academic, custom, elsewhere, financial, national, and street vendors and view. The first one, someone who sells something in public places. Let's look at the following picture. Here, what do we call this person who sells something in public places? We call him a street vendor. Now the second one. It's an adjective and it means connected with money, with a country, connected with a country. Have you found the answer? It's financial. Now the third one. Look at. Look at something, it means to view something. Number 4, it's an adjective and it means connected with education, schools, etc. Connected with education, so it's academic. Number 5, it means habit or tradition. What is the word that means habit or tradition? It's custom. Now, connected with money or taxes. This is an adjective. It means connected with money or taxes. It's financial. Now, the last one, in another place or other places. When something is in another place, we say it's elsewhere. Now, we are going to listen again to the same recording, but we have some questions that we want to find the answers to while.
If you go to Japan in March or April, you're almost certain to see one of the cherry blossom festivals.
Okay, now let's read the questions before we listen. The first question, in which season does the cherry blossom festival take place? Now the second one, when did the festival begin? The third one, which 3 events does the cherry blossom festival mark? D, which Japanese cities are popular during the cherry blossom festival? Where can you go to see the cherry blossom if you don't like crowds of people? The last one, how are cherry trees in Japan different from cherry trees in other places? Now, let's listen. Try to find the answers to these questions.
If you go to Japan in March or April, you're almost certain to see one of the cherry blossom festivals which take place all over the country every spring. Viewing the new blossom on cherry trees has been a favorite Japanese custom since the 7th century CE. When it first started, Japanese people used to look at the blossom on the cherry trees and write poems. These days the festival not only marks the beginning of spring, but also the start of the academic year and the financial year. On viewing days, people eat special food and drink outside. Some people take their own food, others buy food from street vendors. Parks in the Japanese capital Tokyo are favorite places for people to view the cherry blossom, but of course the parks can get very busy. The historical parts of the city of Kyoto are also very popular. For people who don't like noise and crowds of people, there are also quieter places, like the mountains, where they can view the blossom. In fact, everywhere in Japan there are cherry trees, parks, castles, gardens and even school playgrounds. The blossom of the cherry tree is Japan's national flower and there are more than 400 types of cherry trees in the country. But these cherry trees are different from those elsewhere in the world because they do not produce fruit.
Okay, have you found the answers? Okay, let's answer them one by one. The first one. In which season does the cherry blossom festival take place? Here we have the answer. The cherry blossom festival takes place in spring. Now the second one. When did this festival begin? It began in the 7th century CE. Now which three events does the cherry blossom festival mark? It marks the beginning of spring. This is the first one. The second one, it marks the start of the academic year and financial year. Now dear, which Japanese cities are popular during the cherry blossom festival? The two cities are, yes, Tokyo and Kyoto. Now, when can you go to see cherry blossom if you don't like crowds of people? You can go to the mountains to view the blossom if you don't like crowds of people. Now the last question. How are cherry trees in Japan different from cherry trees in other places? They are different because they don't produce fruit. Okay, let's move to the vocabulary. Now we are going to talk about multi-part verbs. First of all, what do we mean by multi-part verbs? Multi-part verbs are verbs that consist of a verb and one or two words or prepositions that must be taken together to understand the meaning of the verb. Like, for example, look at, which means see. The second one, look after, which means, what does it mean? It means to take care of. Look forward to, it means waiting with a pleasure for something to happen. So each one of them has a different meaning. Now we are going to talk about multi-part verbs with go. Okay, now the first sentence. The lights went out and everything was completely black. Look at this picture. Can you see anything? Okay, the lights went out, so we can't see anything. Okay, everything was black. So what do we mean by went out or go out? It means stop shining. The second one. The storm went on for about 10 minutes. Let's look at the following picture. Okay, look, this is the storm and it went on. Here I'm talking about the duration of this storm. Okay, so what do we mean by went on or go on? It means continue. Okay, now let's move to the third one. When the fire bell went off, the students had to leave the classroom. What do we mean by went off? Look, here we have fire on or at school, the fire bell went off. What does it mean? It means suddenly start to make a noise. Now the fourth one. My family is going away for 2 weeks in the summer. Going away or go away. What do I mean by go away? It means they don't stay at home, which means they leave home. Okay, now let's move to the fifth one. The price of bread has gone up again. I'm talking about the price of bread. Now, what do you mean by go up? It means increase. Now the sixth one. I got up late, so I had to go without breakfast this morning. For example, I want to get up at 6 o'clock, but I got up at 7 o'clock. So there is no time to have breakfast. So I went without breakfast. So what do you mean by go without? It means not have. Now complete these sentences with one of the multi-part verbs and make sure you use the correct verb tense. The words go out, go without, go on, go to, go off, and go up. Okay, now let's start with the first sentence. You must sleep. You look terrible. For example, I'm looking at you and I see that you are tired. I say you look terrible. You must. You must what? You must go to sleep. Yes. After must, we use the infinitive, so we have to use go to sleep. Okay. The second one. If the price of petrol, again, I will have to stop using my car. Stop using my car. So I think that the price of petrol has increased or increases. Okay, increase, what does it mean if we want to use the multi-part verb with go? Go up, yes. Now let's see the tense of this sentence. If we have a conditional sentence here, if the price of petrol. Let's see the second part of the conditional sentence. I will have to stop using my car. I will. So I have to use the present simple. The price of petrol is singular, so I have to use goes up. Let's move to the next one. My alarm clock at 6 o'clock every morning. Now, my alarm clock, so here I'm talking about the alarm clock, and it means suddenly starts to make a noise. Okay, what is the multi-part verb that we want to use here? My alarm clock goes off. Okay, now let's see the tense of this sentence. We have every morning, which is a frequent adverb or adverb of frequency, so we have to use goes off. Now let's move to D. Last night, the storm for nearly 5 hours and finally stopped at dawn. What do you mean by dawn? Look at this picture. These pictures, we have the dawn. It means the sun rise. Okay. Now, last night the storm, we want to say that it continues for nearly 5 hours. So we have to use go on. Yes. But let's see the tense of this sentence. Last night, it's in the past, so we have to use went on. We couldn't see anything. We couldn't see a thing when the lights, it means stop shining. What is the word that means stop shining? It's what? Go out, but let's see the tense of this sentence. We couldn't. Could is the past tense of can. So we have to use it in the past, went out. The last one. We had a very expensive holiday last year. So this summer. Here, I think that here we don't have enough money to go on holiday this summer. So we will not have a holiday. The word that we must use, go without. But let's see the tense of this sentence. We have this summer. This summer. So we have to use the present continuous. Okay. We are going without this summer. Do you know any other information about Cherry Blossom Festival in Japan? If not, you can surf the net to find more information about it. Are there other multi-part verbs with go that aren't mentioned in this lesson? Surf the net to discover them. We've come to the end of our lesson today. Thank you very much.